If you don't have any cast iron pans in your collection, then you might be wondering what the big deal is. So today I'm going to give you the lowdown on cast iron. So for this video, I have a little helper, which is this giant cast iron pan. They get much bigger than this, but this is the biggest one that'll actually fit on my burner. And I use cast iron fairly frequently, and I got a request from Carol recently to talk about cast iron in a video, kind of give it some information about it. So that's what we're gonna do today. So the first cool thing about cast iron is that it can work on the stovetop and in the oven because it is one solid piece. It's not like other pans that might have some sort of like rubber or plastic in the handle or something like that. So that makes it really versatile because you can do stuff on the stovetop, you can do stuff in the oven, and you can also make recipes that require some cooking on the stovetop first and then moving the pan into the oven to finish the dish off. Another cool thing about cast iron is that it holds heat really well, and this is nice, but it can be a little tricky if you've never used cast iron before, because I mean, we all tend to get used to however our pans work. We know if I'm gonna cook this, then I put the heat on this temperature and I use this amount of fat and I cook it for this amount of time and all that stuff. So if you're using cast iron for the first time, all that stuff might be a little different. I find that when I use cast iron, I usually turn the heat on, but I end up having to turn it down a little bit because it doesn't need that constant heat. It's holding the heat a lot better. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're trying something in the cast iron for the first time, to make sure that you don't get something that is cooked on the outside but not cooked all the way through, or even end up with something getting burnt because the cast iron is holding the heat so well. Cast iron is also nice because it is incredibly durable. When you buy a cast iron pan, if you take care of it, it should last you forever, and it can even get passed on from generation to generation. There are lots of people using cast iron skillets that was passed down from their parents or their grandparents or even their great-grandparents. These things can go through generations because they're just a really solid construction. On the nutrition side of things, something that's pretty interesting is that cast iron cookware can actually add iron to your food because some of the iron can actually come off and end up in whatever you're cooking. And this isn't like harmful or anything, except maybe for people who have conditions where their body can't clear metals out or they have too much iron or something like that. But for the average person, no big deal, and it can actually add a little boost if you're someone who has trouble with low iron. Now, one thing with cast iron that can make it a little more work than other types of cookware is you have to maintain the seasoning. So cast iron on its own, if it's just totally bare and has no coating, it will rust. So cast iron cookware has what's called a seasoning, and what it is a very thin layer of fat that has gone through a polymerization process on the pan, and that can create a really slick, nice, almost non-stick coating if it's maintained really well, and it also protects the pan from rusting. And to season a pan, it's really simple. All that's done is the pan is spread with some sort of oil or cooking fat, and then it goes into a hot oven, stays in there for about an hour, cools down, and that heating process lets the oil get down into the pores of the iron, and it creates this seasoning over the iron to keep it protected. So as the owner of a cast iron pan, you may have to re-season your pan every once in a while. I know I've read that Alton Brown recommends that you do it once a year to all your cast iron, just to make sure that you're keeping things in tip-top working shape. So it's not something you have to do super often, but that is something to be aware of if you're looking to get some cast iron. Now, because of that seasoning, you also don't want to wash cast iron pans the same way that you might other pots and pans, because you don't want to damage the seasoning. Now, there are some different schools of thought with this. Some people just don't wash the pan at all. They wipe out whatever excess fat or food residues in the pan and leave it at that. Other people do wash it, but they don't use any soap, and maybe just something really gentle to get rid of any little bits that might be in the pan that you don't want in there. And then some people also use a salt method, where they use salt and they kind of use that as a little bit of an abrasive to get anything off the pan, but it doesn't harm the seasoning the way that intense scrubbing with soap might. The good news is that even if you do end up somehow damaging the seasoning on your pan, it's not that big of a deal, because you can just re-season the pan to make up for it. It is an extra step you have to take, but it's really easy to do. Something else that's kind of in a similar vein is that you don't want to cook really high acid foods in your cast iron. So you wouldn't want to cook like a tomato sauce, for example, because that's a lot of acid bubbling away in the pan for a long time. Also, if you do decide to wash your cast iron, you want to make sure that you don't just leave it out to dry. You want to dry it immediately so that there isn't any moisture hanging around. And then you also may want to do like a little thin layer of oil or fat on the pan just to keep it nice and protected. Overall, cast iron pans are really great tools to have in the kitchen. They're super durable, they cook food beautifully, and they can last you for a really long time. But they do require a little extra care and attention than other pots and pans might. So those are the basics on cast iron cookware. I hope you liked this video, and let me know in the comments if you have any other questions about cast iron and if you use cast iron in your own kitchen. And if you're new to my channel and you want more healthy eating tips and nutrition info and healthy recipes, don't forget to subscribe, because eating healthy and living a healthy lifestyle really doesn't have to be complicated, and I want to show you how to do it. And if you're loving the free info here, but you're finding that you need something a little more personalized, don't forget that I do offer one-on-one sessions. So if you're interested in that, just let me know and we can get that set up for you. Thanks for watching. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll talk to you next time. Okay. Oh, thanks, babe.
Mom, why do you do one with lube bug in the pan and you hold up the pan?
Okay, let's try it. Let's see if she'll do it. But where am I going to put the text?
What?
Where am I going to put the text?
I don't know, forget. You're going to have to hold it better than that. Alright, you guys?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Maybe. Okay.
Good
Maybe
job,
film the
Lily.
actual video now.
Oh. Good job, Lily.